Hello and good morning, everyone. Today is April the 27th. It's a beautiful Monday morning, and on today's animal news, we have grain prices. A lot of people probably don't pay attention to this. If you are a hobby farmer, if you are someone that only buys pet food or anything like that, or just buys a small amount of grain for your animal. However, for any commercial type of farm, for any farm that buys a considerable amount of grain, they have to account for the price of grain in their business. And I would imagine that grain is probably, beside labor, probably one of the largest expenses that a farm would inquire. It is something that can make or break a business as well. Cheap grain and expensive grain, not necessarily just that, but when you are buying a cheaper grain, you have to figure out where to draw the line of buying a completely terrible grain and adding supplements to it, buying a terrible grain and having to deal with colic surgeries, buying a medium grain and wondering if that is worth the money or the difference, and buying an expensive grain and wondering if the pre and probiotics are worth the extra expense, the vitamins, minerals, the chelated, the amino acid guarantees, and all of those things. That is up to each end user. However, one thing that is guaranteed in all of that, if you are a farm of any size, is that grain prices matter to you. So on this episode, I was wanting to quickly go over the futures of grain. Now, before I go over this, one thing that I would like to explain on grains is that if you are a farm that is somewhat large, you can go and contract your grain price. So what a lot of people probably don't realize is that we have several farms that we contract with. And what a contract is basically you're locking in your price for a set amount of time or a set amount of tons. And what you can do is 6 months would be the maximum that anyone is going to guarantee, this price for. So you can go a 6 month period of time, and the minimum on that, so this is where it kind of weeds out the smaller consumer, the minimum tons that you could contract is 100 tons. So you would have to go through 100 tons in 6 months. So that does weed out a lot of people, but we do have several farms that contract with us. So you are able to lock in prices based on what you think is the future of the market. And of course, on the grain side, there is people that read the futures of the market and can guarantee that price for a certain amount of time based on what they think the market is going to do. We recently had some people that contracted grain prices for a certain amount of time, and obviously with this pandemic, it was a very unique situation. So not only were grain prices and the futures of grain involved in that, but also they had to account for what is this pandemic going to do. So one thing that is very unusual is the entire world, the globe, is shut down in the sense of not driving cars, not flying planes as much as usual. So what that did was that took a lot of ethanol use off the market. And ethanol is used when they make ethanol. A byproduct of ethanol is a product called DDGs. So those stands for dried distillers grains. And what DDGs are is a very important product in a lot of commercial livestock feed, horse feed included for the majority of the time. And so when you're not making ethanol, then as a result, you're not making DDGs. So DDGs are hard to come by. So there is a very low supply and a great demand, or an average demand, but the supply goes down in that. So DDGs have been all thrown out of whack, and some other things as a result of this pandemic as well. However, the article that we read on April 27th, the latest futures prices, we see a considerable amount of price change down. So what that means is, futures are traded in the stock market. These things are, it's basically a bet. It is a, guesstimate of what futures will be. And a lot of people are thinking that there will be a large supply and not as much demand. So the stock market has a little bit to play in this. However, as a general consensus, they think that 6 months from now, 3 months from now, that these prices will be down. And so your horse feed, your pet food, all should either stay the same or go down in the next 6 months or so, if nothing else changes with our current market, if nothing else changes with our current pandemic or anything like that, if we continue to get back to normal life and things. So not only is this corn and soybean is not that much down, but corn is considerably down, and wheat is considerably down. The futures on wheat is considerably down. Oats are majorly down, and then some other things. So the only thing that is futured to be up is canola, which as a general rule has not much to do with horse feed or pet food. Anyways, if you are buying feed, you can assume that it's probably going to stay the same price for a little while. We did have a small spike here about a month ago of price increases as we came to the end of the pandemic kind of. I don't know if that was just a temporary spike in accordance with that or what that was all about, but we did have a small spike here recently. But it looks like the futures are bright for the consumer. Obviously, if you're a farmer, that is not a good news for all the prices to be trending down. But on the consumer end, the price of feed should stay the same over the next several months. If not, maybe even go down a little bit. A little bit of a boring lesson today, but thank you for watching anyways if you made it to this point. And feel free to give your thoughts or tell me I'm an idiot, whatever you want to say. Thank you so much for watching.